Fast Shot Final, JCM Jones from the Mothership and Dirty South Soccer. Joe Patrick from United winning the game, and Dirty South Soccer is over there. Joe, welcome to Hot Take Monday.
Let's go.
Monday. I mean, I don't know if I told you that was coming or not, but I've been complaining so much in the Discord the last couple days about things that literally don't matter that I feel like Hot Take Monday is gonna take off for me here. I'm also kind of grumpy. It's early in the morning. Let's do this. There's all sorts of other things going on that have made me upset and irrationally angry about everything in the world. So it's cool. Let's do this.
Wild Monday. Of course, last night the whole Super League thing broke, and then me as the Tottenham fan who's yet to take down my Tottenham scarf, fired Jose Mourinho. We were just talking about this before the show. I should be happy this morning, and I'm failing to feel the joy of a sacking that I desperately was hoping for months. So weird.
Joe Patrick, there's only one real Super League. That is the Major League of Soccer. That's the only real one. Let's keep things in perspective here. Atlanta United played their first Major League of Soccer game this weekend, and nothing really happened.
Dude, all right. First of all, before we even talk about the game, I was watching this game on my computer because the game was on Twitter, and whenever I would try to go full screen, it would be choppy to the point where it wasn't unwatchable, but it was frying my brain because of the frame rate. So so then I finally decided in the second half I minimized it, and I'm just basically watching the game through a tiny little box that's in my feed on Twitter. So that was fun. And then I realized I have an iPad that I can pull it up on, so I watched the last 10 minutes on a somewhat decent sized screen. But God, I do not want to have to go through that again. I don't know when our next game is on Twitter or Tuda, but it's not a good experience.
There are a few, and what I do is I go to the box on Twitter and just hit Control+ until the screen just enlarges and goes
that's
over
a good
and over
idea.
again.
That's
and
a good idea.
It does get bigger, but at some point the thing breaks and the screen gets smaller.
Yeah,
and the icons on Twitter grow massive.
I've definitely done that before when I'm trying to enhance an image.
Exactly. So you got to find the right balance. It's tough. It's tough to find the right balance in soccer as well. Atlanta United, like we said, played pretty much the same game they kind of played against LA Wednesday. Of course, it was a little bit better competition. We'll kind of get to that in a second, but first, some housekeeping things to get to. Y'all, we had another interview guest on the Patreon. Y'all got to go check out our Lorenoview, as I almost said. But now I'm rolling with, because holy crap, why did I not think of that earlier? Jeff Lorenowitz on the Lorenoview. We talked with Jeff for probably about an hour and a half, I think it was, the other day. And he was open and candid and extremely thoughtful, as always, about everything. And it's a good listen. I went back and listened to it. I felt some things. It's solid. I encourage y'all to check out the Patreon and go check out that.
He had the retired man's time on his hands. It was nice not to have anybody with another meeting to get to or something like that. He was just totally relaxed. Still not sure if he's gardening or not. He was pulling the rug out from under us a couple times with that. But honestly, it was the best conversation I've ever had about Atlanta United with anybody. So just recommend everybody to check that out and share it with your friends. Get them on board, because I think anybody who has an interest in Atlanta United will definitely want to hear this interview.
I think it's interesting to look at the kind of things we're getting from Jeff and Parkhurst and Boswell and Darren and all these kind of folks who have been involved with the team. And I think we're really kind of starting to get somewhat closer to piecing together exactly what's happened over the last 4 years. I don't know if we have it exactly right. There's still a lot of people I want to bring in, but with each thing, I think we're getting closer to the truth, which is somewhere in the middle.
You just get a little bit more context, another kernel of information that every time we do one of these. Yeah. And so it's it's filling in this picture, it's putting a puzzle together. And it's another piece laid in there to help you see the picture, the grand picture of what has happened with this club over the last, 3 years or 4 years, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's been 4 years. Yeah, isn't that wild? Go check that out on the Patreon. We'll have more guests coming up next. Someone will release on Monday. I'm not sure what the interview is going to be yet. We'll figure it out.
It'll be somebody. at least somebody you guys
We
will
gotta
like.
we gotta switch it up a little bit. I think the last two wins have been a little too good. We gotta lower people's
I
expectations
know we really
just
do.
a little bit. Okay, can't be doing this all the time. We will also have another main show like this one out after the Philadelphia game in CCL next Wednesday. So we'll have Chicago and then Philadelphia on Tuesday, and then another main show. Now you know.
I will say, if there's anybody that you guys want to hear from on our show that you would like us to talk with, feel free to just let us know any way you can. If you're on the Discord, you can drop it in there, or just add us on Twitter or whatever with somebody you would want to hear from in an interview. I think what will probably be more like reporter focused once we get into the season, like talk to Felipe, talk to Doug, talk to maybe even some Christopher Meister is a guy who used to cover this team a lot. I would be kind of interested to kind of check in with him because now he's just a season ticket holder fan, but he's still reporting in the area. So I think that's kind of the way we'll go, but who knows? And I would want our listeners to obviously have input into who they want to hear from. So please just let us know.
All right, this is like 8 minutes of vamping. We got to move on to
let's go.
Hot Take Monday. No, just kidding. Not yet. Not yet. Business time. We'll go to business time. Hot Take Monday. Business time. Joe, Patrick, only real piece of business to get to is the fact that Atlanta and Orlando played to a 0-0 draw. Orlando probably had the better of the chances. There was one in particular with Pato that kind of sticks in my mind that was where he basically got like, you could hear like a parent in the crowd yelling, same team, same team. And Orlando did not score, but they very well could have. Pato looked threatening for a long time until he got hurt, which was a bummer. I hope he's doing all right. I have not heard news on that. I think that comes out today. But overall, Atlanta, pretty solid defensively again, pretty meh getting to the final third and making things happen. But there were a few chances here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the best chances came from Brooks Lennon, I think, on set pieces. Early in the game, it seemed like they were dangerous. And I think that honestly, just like after the initial like 20-minute period, I felt like the intensity kind of dropped off for Atlanta United. Just, Lisandro Lopez, you got a guy who's older up front, and he wasn't technically poor or anything like when the ball came to him, but he just doesn't really give you the forward thrust that you really need, especially with this collection of players going into the attack. One of the things that really kind of came to my mind is that it's something that Frank de Boer kind of had, issues with in his early tenure as well, the early time of his tenure as well, which is that the team doesn't have enough like runners threatening the opposing defensive line, getting in behind them. Everybody wants to drop and come to the ball. And so when you do that, you can have a lot of possession, you can play lots of passes, but you're not really in the end creating anything threatening. And when you do get in the box, oftentimes you don't have other players in there to get on the end of a cross or just to create havoc in the box. So I think that's something that this team needs to work on. It's probably why a guy like Jake Mulroney is playing, because he is just that kind of more direct player who will take a guy on one-on-one and try to get into the box. But I think the fact that he is starting for this team at this point right now is a little bit troubling. Just nothing against him personally, but you would think that you would have kind of players with more bona fides coming in and being able to provide a threat on the wing. So it's early days, still kind of the early struggles. But again, I'll say the same thing at this point in the season as I was saying when Frank de Boer first came in, which is that a new manager just needs time. A new manager needs time to let the players get things figured out.
You aren't encouraging anybody by saying that.
Touche. But okay, on that note, I will say that I think it's very clear that this team is advanced past where they were at this stage with Frank de Boer. Like, just the play in possession just generally looks more threatening. There is more movement among the players. It's not this kind of stagnant formation that we saw under Frank de Boer. And that's something that George Bello talked about before the game as well, talking about how with Gabriel Heinze is kind of, putting into their minds is not that they are playing a certain position per se, but that, the goal is to fill in space when another player leaves that space and just create that kind of fluidity within the team.
Okay.
What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we can talk about Jake. I think that's maybe the most important position right now, maybe kind of emblematic of what exactly is going on. with this team's struggles, because again, like you said, the movement is there. It's going to get better. We are going to see this team get into a lot of those same positions. Hopefully they did against the Alajuelense in the first half of that second game, where they were kind of getting to the edge of the box on the wing. They were getting to the end line, and those are usually good positions to get in.
Mm-hmm.
My concern right now is, are they, as the team is constructed right now, I'm trying to parse my way through Hot Take Monday. As the team is constructed right now, do they have the dudes to actually make it count when they get there? And you talk about Jake, who again is direct, but maybe not the paciest dude, maybe not the guy who's really going to kind of run in behind. Watching the rest of the league this week and kind of understanding how teams were scoring, how teams were getting folks into the box, how teams were getting in behind and making runs and everything like that, it doesn't seem like Atlanta has that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry that the guys will not be there to do that. Because, I mean, again, you look at someone like Marcelino, who is going to try to beat Deuce one-on-one, but maybe he's going to make those runs because he's a midfielder playing the wing right now and still kind of learning how to do that probably. You look at Zeke's inability to play a pass and transition to someone who's 30 yards open. We'll get to that a little bit later. And then on the right wing, you have Jake or Jurgen. And maybe if you like mashed both of them together, it's like Jurgen's speed with Jake's kind of direct ability to not give the ball up every single time he touches it. You know, maybe then you would have something. But right now, I still remain very, very concerned that this is a team without any players except Joseph, Massandro, and Cubo, who have not scored more than 4 times at a top flight professional level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Joseph is one of those guys that you would have in the past relied upon as being one of those guys who threatens in behind. We've seen him so many times making that kind of darting run either at the far post and the near post, and it's very hard for the defenders to kind of predict that. And I'd also think that it's why I thought the team looked generally most dangerous late in the game when Machop Chol came on, because he was providing some of that threat, and he's got those, I called them go-go gadget legs.
He's like, so lanky.
Like he doesn't even need to get in behind somebody to be able to stick his foot out like at the back post and get on the end of a cross, which is pretty amazing just to see it. But honestly, like he kind of gives you that threat, and it's just the idea of putting it in a defender's mind that it's possible for that threat to be there that then can open up so many things for everybody else. But I think with Barco, well, go ahead.
Well, you know who made the best run of the day?
Who's that?
Brooks Lennon.
That's right, yeah. Brooks
Lennon made this diagonal run into, we'll call it zone 14, which is that area next to the arc and the penalty area. It's a place where if you get the ball there, most of the time your chances are going to increase of scoring. But he made a diagonal run from fullback in behind a couple folks. And I think Marcelino played a gorgeous ball to him in the middle, and it nearly resulted in a goal. But if Brooks Lennon, as your fullback, is the only one making those runs, do you see why there might be some issues?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I gave Brooks my man of the match. I thought he's been one of Atlanta United's probably like top 2 or 3 players in every single game they've played so far this year, which is a great sign for him going forward. I do want to talk about Barco because I feel like he's a player in this game who kind of divided opinion. I thought he actually played pretty well, although that he had that one pass at the end that you mentioned. It was like there was a wide open ball he had. I think it may have been Chol on the left side that he was trying to play it to. And I don't know if it was like the grass had dried up at that point in the game because it was late, but like the ball just died on the grass, like not even close to Chol.
Don't give him that. Don't give him that. Absolutely not. He played it 15 yards to the middle of where he should have played it. Machop was so wide. He was like nearly on the touchline, and Zeke hit a center back. I swear to God. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, listen,
I don't
it wasn't
get
a good
too
pass.
fired up, but Hot Take Monday.
It wasn't a good pass, but I just thought generally that Barco was actually doing well, finding space in between Orlando's defensive line and midfield line and turning and running into space. The problem is that, again, his wingers, he's got Marcelino Moreno on one side, who is okay. I think I gave him a 5 because I couldn't tell whether he was good or bad in the game, where it's like he looks kind of awkward as a winger. It doesn't seem like it's a natural position for him at this point. But it's just like, when you have a player like Ezekiel Barker, he's just not a player who is going to make runs in behind. He really needs the kind of Tito Villalbas essentially around him. And I feel like that's exactly the kind of player that this team is missing right now, is just like that goal scoring threat from the wing. Marcelino Moreno and Jake Mulroney really are not those players. And especially when you have a Lisandro Lopez, who's also going to be a guy who wants to drop off of that defensive line and link up play, you need those players who are going to be real threats getting in behind and a chance to score goals. So, it's just one of the things that this team needs to work through at this point in the season. And Gabriel Heinze will hopefully be able to do that. He's got a week now before the team welcomes Chicago Fire to Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
You mean the same Tito Villalba that has more goals and assists than both PT and Barco combined in MLS? That Tito Villalba who scored again last night for Paraguay. That one. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, cool. That again. I mean, you kind of hit on the head there. That's my big concern. Where are the dudes? Where are
the dudes?
Where are the dudes? That's a title card on Discord. That's coming.
Eric Lopez, where is he? No,
where's Eric Lopez? Oh, sorry, Joe.
At this point, I'm getting concerned. I'm getting concerned about his whereabouts.
The question is then, how do you fix it, right? And so this is what I've been kind of had in the back of my head, and this is the thing that I know is much, but I'm going to say it, and we're just going to put it out in the world, and we can have a discussion about it when this summer comes. And I think it's very likely you have Ezekiel Barco still looking about the same he is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no point where he's suddenly going to break through. I don't think there's not going to be this point where he breaks through like some kind of glass ceiling and takes off. If you are in the summer and that still hasn't even been a progression with him, I think you got to sell him, because you're not going to get any more for him if you wait till the winter, right? You sell him, you clear a DP spot, and get yourself a winger that actually knows how to score and move Marcelino back in the midfield. I think you've got a much better team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that the pieces could fit a little bit better right now. And again, that's why I've kind of always looked at this as like a 2-year plan, essentially,
Absolutely.
for Gabriel Heinze, because this is a much improved team overall talent wise, but the pieces don't fit together completely perfectly, which is why I think that this can be a year in which you progress and you build, but then you kind of can fine tune things in that second year to really put together a team that can win every competition you play in. So I agree with you in that respect. I think for me, it's a little early to start and I'm not saying that you're doing this, but to assume what Barco is going to be at whatever point in the season. But I do generally agree that, there is kind of like him occupying a DP slot is huge, because it means you can replace him with anybody. Like, there's no limit on if once you move a player out of a DP spot, the gains you could get back for that are kind of unlimited, just based upon what you are willing to spend as a club. And I think that Atlanta United would still be willing to spend quite a lot. I mean, I know we're in the throes of all this pandemic's, financial blowback, but I think that this team still would be willing to spend. And I mean, I think it could provide a big opportunity for this team. So I think you're right. But I also don't want it to sound like we're pushing him out the door, because I feel like there is still a lot that he can provide for this team. But I mean, he's made it clear too. I mean, I think that everybody understands that this is his last season at Atlanta United, and his performances are going to dictate whether he gets a move to Sevilla or something, or a move to Palmeiras or Sao Paulo or something. That's kind of what it's coming to.
We might be aiming high with even those, to be totally honest.
Well, I mean, so I don't think so. Well, no, Sevilla would be like tops. Like I'm just throwing out like a goodish team in Spain. But barring a move to Europe, I definitely think like a move to Brazil or something would be on the cards.
Yeah, and to backtrack, of course. So this is so early for me to even be thinking this. Kind of. I mean, we do have 3 years of sample size on him at this point, but
Yeah.
It is early in this particular system. We still haven't quite seen exactly this team flowing at full force and what that's going to look like. But when it gets there, I do wonder if the high end, if when they do hit those peaks, is going to be enough to push this team past a team that is just a mid-level playoff team. You know, it's so early for all of this, but this is just kind of
it's initial
the initial signs, right?
It's hot take Monday.
It's hot take Monday. That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. I am interested to see how it progresses. I am interested to see if maybe anything changes. Because right now, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just kind of seems like the same thing keeps happening over and over again. And we have so much data points at this point. It's just hard. It's hard. Let me tell you this. This is what really set me off. This is why Hot Take Monday exists. It's because I was watching LAFC in Austin. About 60 minutes left. It's a 1-0 game. LAFC is up Austin. And a team who is brand new, playing with a brand new coach, looks extremely threatening and cohesive going forward. Looks like they have the guys to get it done with folks like Thomas Pochettino, Cecilio Dominguez, and other folks who looked pretty sharp. Even Danny Houston looked competent for like 5 minutes there, which was wild. John Gallagher, of all people, you'll remember him. He was last year's leading scorer on Atlanta United. John Gallagher comes on with 30 minutes left and immediately starts creating chances off the wing, immediately gets his head to a ball that he probably should have finished. It was a really high XG chance in the middle of the box, but he ran in and cut in and made one of those runs that we're talking about and got his head to it, and it just went over the bar. It was frustrating to look back and be like, oh, we gave this piece up who, I mean, if you're putting John Gallagher against Jake Mulroney and Jurgen Damm, we already know who starts in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know? And it's frustrating to look back and be like, oh, we gave up this piece for $250,000 in the GAM, which of course the GAM did come back around to help buy down Marcelino, get a DP center back and everything like that. There could be some larger arguments as to whether or not the DP center back was super highly necessary now in hindsight that we kind of realize that Anton is pretty A-okay. But that's pedantic. That's harsh. But my take on John Gallagher is not. I don't think. I really think he should have been the one to stay, and that there are other ways to go about getting that GAM.
Well, I mean, he's exactly the kind of player where he's not the Tito in terms of like having the same exact physical attributes in terms of the speed and everything like that, but he is the kind of goal scoring threat that this team could use. You know, a guy that is willing to make those runs, those unselfish runs that are very painful when you're tired, but they can make the difference for a team. And maybe it's not even a guy like John Gallagher actually scoring the goals, but just by making the run, you create havoc and you change the dynamic that would allow somebody else to score. So I definitely see your point there. It's just tough in MLS because, and if you ever want to trade and get something, especially when you've had a really poor season, you only have so many saleable assets. And I know we have a question about this a little bit later, so we can go a little bit more into like the whole trade situations with teams. But it's just a tough situation. I'm sure the team would have loved to have John Gallagher if they could have kept him, but I think that it just shows that he is the kind of player that this team could use right now, and they have to figure out somebody on the squad now who can do those kinds of things.
Exactly. And none of this is to say that anything is bad right now. Nothing is bad. This is not
it's a pretty good start to the season. I
honestly think
it's probably as good a start as you could have expected at this point.
Absolutely. And you look around the league too, and you look at what the rest of the CCL teams did this week, and I can kind of go through results off the top of my head. Portland lost 1-0 to Vancouver. Toronto lost 4-2 to Montreal. Philadelphia and the Crew played to a scoreless draw. And then there was us who also played to a scoreless draw. So you had a bunch of teams that didn't score and or lost to Montreal. So it's tough. It's tough coming off a midweek game like that, especially this early in the season. I'm not freaking out because we drew with Orlando. I thought it was a good result. All considered, going on the road against one of the best teams in the league pretty easily and getting a point. That's huge. You're going to take that every single time, especially in a rivalry game, and everything like that. You got to the end, you're kind of like, oh, please, God, please don't lose. I can't handle the internet if we lose. And that didn't happen. They survived. They created enough chances to make it interesting as well, and had a few opportunities where they could have won the game outright. I'm not saying anything is bad. I'm just kind of looking towards the future and wondering if this team will be able to get to the top tier of MLS this year. I think they're the tier below it right now. And I don't know how soon that progression is going to come. It may take a second, and I'm interested to see what moves they make to rectify that.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what this team looks like against Chicago on Saturday, because it'll be the first time they've had a full week in between games, obviously, since they've kind of started these competitive matches. Well, no, I guess they had the full week in between the two Alajuelense games, but I just think that when it comes to this Orlando game, you probably didn't have a ton of time to prep outside of doing video work because just of the shortened schedule. You're doing recovery. They probably had one training session, maybe two. I'm trying to do the math in my head and it's too early. So yeah, I mean, I expect them to look a lot better. And it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the conditions at home. But regardless of how they look, I just can't wait for that game because it should be super fun to have people back, and we'll be back there. And I just can't wait for Saturday.
Yeah, it'll legit be the first time I've seen you in like a year, I think. Not over Zoom, which is wild. But y'all don't sleep on Chicago. Chicago got some ballers. Yeah. Chicago scored a couple goals against New England. New England didn't know it hit them in the first 20 minutes. Their goal in the 5th minute.
That one that was a tap in, that was like a ridiculous goal.
Just a gorgeous goal with it. You kind of like, that's one of those things where you look at it and you go, wait, Chicago is doing that?
Yeah.
They're delivering these gorgeous balls and making these great runs and delivering a tap in for Robert Barrett, who was allowed to score 1 goal a game, every game, but nothing more ever. Go look at his stat sheet. It's hilarious. They're doing that. You're looking at us going, wait, shouldn't we be doing that? Like comparison, thief of joy, all that kind of thing. I'm just saying, I just want to know how this team gets to the top end. That's all. That's all.
I also want to call out one last thing, and this actually was a quote from before the game. And I think it was Gabriel Heinze was talking about this, and he was talking about playing these games allow him to see is to see how the players react and play differently in a game situation versus how they play in a training situation, where in a training situation, you can just give them an instruction, you execute the instruction, and, et cetera, whatever. And I'm just making something up. But then when you have all these different pressures that happen in a game where, you're just in that free flow state, you're kind of on your own out there. You might make different decisions and play a different way. So I think that will also be something in what we have heard is a very kind of detail oriented system like Heinze's is to like, at what point do those players kind of feel that freedom where they stop thinking and it just becomes natural and they just start playing with one another. I think that when it gets to that point, it will be clear. And I do think that the chance creation will kind of go up and as a result.
That's a great point, because something that I kind of had in my head too, kind of thinking about the game, was just thinking about the hesitancy of players to get into the box. And you look at a team like LAFC and watch how they create chances, with square and balls at the top of the box, with guys cutting in, and you kind of get into that middle part of zone 14 again, and you play a diagonal through ball and everything like that with guys running in. Atlanta is too hesitant right now. I mean, they're never going to be LAFC in the case that Bob Bradley is like, every single human has to get forward or you're kicking you off the team or maybe even accidentally substituting you. Oops, sorry. But Atlanta doesn't have that right now. And it will kind of get there, I think. It won't get to that level, but I think you're exactly right. Once that hesitancy goes away, people will feel more comfortable knowing that they have backup behind them. Because again, I think that's something interesting that George Bello has talked about, is that it's this positional play, which is becoming very in vogue in world soccer as far as from a tactical perspective, where you simply just fill in for the next guy if they leave their position, and you kind of rotate that way and back them up. So once everyone gets more comfortable with that, you should see guys getting forward in a way that makes this team way more threatening. Please. Hopefully.
Agree. You ready to take some questions?
Let's do it after this quick break. Wow, Joe, what a break. You guys had questions. We have answers, probably. We'll figure it out. First time caller ask. Obviously, 3 matches in with 3 clean sheets and only 2 goals, 1 questionable PK, and a garbage time poke-in. The focus is on offensive production, but with Joseph recovering, the team showing they are still learning under Gabby, and normal early season finishing issues, are there any foundational concerns we should be paying attention to?
I
Way
don't
to
know
sum
what,
up the entire first part of the show there, first time caller.
and I don't know why this reminded me of when I asked Lennon about this after the second Alajuelense game. I asked if there was like, something about the lack of chance creation or whatever. He's like, we've scored 2 goals in 2 games. So it's like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you have.
you sure have, bud.
um, anyway, all that's to say is I guess the team is trying to downplay the lack of chance creation so far this season. And maybe it's, I don't know, making themselves feel good. But
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Please ask me anything. Get
Do
me
you
off this.
remember? Do you remember my before Hot Take Monday even existed? Before it was just a twinkle in our mind's eye. Do you remember my big take for the season on how many goals we would score? Does this
Remind
familiar
me.
to you at all?
Yes, it is. I remember my prediction was completely wrong.
I said that this team would score less than Frank's 2019
Ooh.
Atlanta United. Now they're going to score more than the 1 goal a game 2020 did, but I think Frank's team was like 1.7 or something like that, which isn't horrific. It's not good. It's not horrific though. What do you think about that right now?
It's sounding quite smart. My prediction was that they would score a bunch and give up a bunch, which is clearly not happening. So it's definitely better than my prediction. And
I thought you were right.
I think it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. It's squaring with what we've seen so far. So, because this team definitely just has that kind of look about it where there's, again, I could go back to a lot of things we said in that first half of the show, but just like a lot of thinking. It looks like there's just a lot of thinking happening and not enough just like genuine reactions. And I think that will come with time. I think by the end of the season, we'll look at this team as being a potent offensive team. But it just, who knows how long it's going to take before that kind of turns.
And again, like I said last week, what helps with those growing pains is having a backline as good as we've had so far. Right. And then you throw in a DP center back into the equation. This is a very, very solid team. Defensively, they aren't going to give up a lot of huge chances, I don't think. And even if they do give up chances where they are one-on-one, I feel really confident. And especially, of course, Miles, but the other guys can do a shift as well if they're one-on-one and kind of stuck on an island. This is not going to be a team that gives up a ton of goals, which will make the next few months a little bit easier because at least we'll be getting some results. I don't think like the goofy Frank de Boer-esque losses to like Cincinnati are going to come,
Yeah. So here, I'm just spitballing here, but when you talk about how good this team is defensively, especially when you throw Franco Escobar into the mix, or Alan Franco into the mix, that will not be the last time I make that error.
There's also Franco Ibarra to keep in mind here.
Yeah. I'm thinking like it's got to be so hard to drop Anton Walkes from this team right now. He's been basically perfect so far this season. So like, could you play a 3-man backline with all 3 of those guys and then just go absolutely just like put on like 2 strikers, play Jose Martinez and Lisandro Lopez and Barco all together? Like would something like that work? I don't know. Maybe it would. I don't know.
Father Martinez asked, with Walkes playing well, what are the chances that we play some matches with a back 3 of Franco, Robinson, and Walkes? How would that affect Lennon, Sosa, and Bello? I don't think it would.
My bad.
Right? Like Lennon, Sosa, and Bello would still.
Yeah, I think Lennon would definitely still play. Yeah, all 3 of those guys would definitely still play. I think the difference would be: would you then remove Heineman and replace him with like a striker? I'm trying to think of all the
math here.
Or maybe it would be a winger that you would have
move Marcelino
Moreno.
Yeah, move Marcelino in behind Joseph and then Barco and Sosa.
If you played a 3-man back line with Franco, Walkes, and Robinson, you would still probably want Lennon and Bello on your wings, right? So that's a 5. And then you've got Sosa playing central midfield,
right,
next to Marcelino Moreno in central midfield with Barco and 2 strikers. Would that work?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay, we're playing FIFA here.
You would basically remove Jake Mulroney. You would remove a winger, like a Jake Mulroney in this case, from the team and replace with like another striker, I guess. And it would require
Which,
a bit of a reshuffling, but
I mean, we are playing FIFA here. We have no idea how this would actually fit under Heinze's system. But like you think about the skill sets of George and especially Brooks, who plays a great ball in, having an extra striker in there for him to do that when they're already getting forward doesn't seem like the worst idea in the entire world.
Just feels like this team needs more bodies centrally and high up the pitch to get in the box and create havoc. So I don't know. It'll certainly be fascinating to see what happens.
To answer the heart of the question though, playing a back three, it is possible. We could see it. I think. I don't know if you necessarily have to right now, especially with the way that George and Brooks are able to already get forward pretty much, and what Sosa does as he shields that back line and as he drops into a back three essentially anyway. I'm not sure adding a third center back is really going to be the answer to that. But I don't know. Yeah, thinking about it, like you could add a second striker if you really wanted to anyway, right?
Sure. Yeah, you could.
Just move him centrally on the way. I don't know. I think you could figure it out. It's a good question, though. It's nice that we have that flexibility at the very least, right? A lot of flexibility on that back line. It's very, very talented. Very, very talented. Philip asked, is it safe to say that through 3 games, Lennon and Sosa have been hands down the best players for Atlanta United so far? I would mostly say yes. I think you could definitely make a case for both Anton and Miles.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But other than that, yeah, I mean, all 4 of those guys, none of them have really put much of a foot wrong, and this team has not given up a goal yet. So I think that's kind of evident that they've been playing their positions very well.
I think what's impressive about Anton too, I just want to say this, he has been so steady. His positioning's been so good. He's not the athlete that Miles is. He's not going to be the athlete that Alan Franco is, right? He's not an extremely explosive dude. He's a body, right? But his ability on the ball and his positioning has been what's made him so successful so far. It's basically like, it's not quite like Tall Parkhurst, but it's that kind of same vein, right? Which like Tall Parkhurst, that's like a top 1 center back in the league, maybe less than that a little bit. And you kind of end up with what Anton is doing, which is awesome. Cause that's the kind of guy we've always said that Miles kind of thrives next to, is as a Parkhurst type. And we've kind of found that inadvertently, I think, and Anton at center back.
And I'm also just impressed with the way that he's been able to play pretty much flawlessly, despite the fact that, a player like him probably knows that, a center back's coming in, could be coming for his position. That can create lots of mental disturbances and cause errors on the field, but we have not seen that at all from him. So huge credit to Anton.
We should get Anton on the show. I think that may be our guest Monday. Let's try that.
Maybe.
John asks, which is the more important development of the first few matches? The defense looking solid, even minus Franco, or the offense seemingly not clicking on all cylinders thus far? Which trend will have the most impact on how this season turned out? I think I want to answer that last question. We kind of talked about the first parts already, but which one will have the most impact? And I think as long as the defense is going, this won't be completely awful.
Yeah.
This team will get results, as long as the defense is going, because we can suddenly start scoring. But if we're giving up goofy late goals, a la, it seemed like Portland did a lot last year, anything like that, they're not going to get the results and people are going to be frustrated anyway. So the defense is the key.
Yeah. To me, this is just a kind of a classic glass half full or glass half empty kind of question where it's like, what are you valuing more at this point? And I definitely think that in the short term, it's definitely going to help the results to be able to keep other teams off the board, especially while you're just in this early phase of trying to get the tactics ingrained and fluid within the team. So but there's a big difference in terms of how that's going to impact you at the end of the season, where if this team is still not creating chances by the end of the season, then that becomes more of an issue than it is right now, if that makes sense.
Hey, look, just make the playoffs in MLS. You can play great defense for 4 games and win the cup,
That's true.
So we'll see. ATL Greg asked, could you see us potentially trading Walks and or Khan? I kind of get where the thought process is here, and that Walks is someone who is rapidly accumulating value. There's no value within the league I can think of that would really translate to a successful trade for Anton right now.
Yeah. And this is what I was going to talk about when we were talking about John Gallagher earlier in the show, where it's like you sell him or you trade him because he has value. He at least has some value. And I see that that's where obviously the question is coming with Walks. It's not that he isn't a good player, and clearly we've kind of praised him so far on this show. But yeah, it's like he has value. What could you get for him, and would whatever you get for him be an overall asset to the team that would help the team in the long term? I don't know. Probably not a ton. I think that you keep Walks. Although it's always easier to say that. So, and same thing for Can. I just don't think he has any value at all on this market. Especially like an aging goalkeeper who is not really proven, is just not a guy who has value.
He's a likable guy. I think everyone kind of just enjoys having him around. And if that's your skill set, dope, cool, hang out.
He's probably more valuable to Atlanta at this point, just because of what he's developed here so far than to any other team, like a new team he would be going to. So, but I still don't, with young goalkeepers in the pipeline, I don't foresee this lasting much longer for Can.
Philip asks, is my criticism for Hyndman warranted? I see it as a top paid player, should be one of the top performers on the pitch, not a guy that seems to disappear on the pitch half the time. Let's talk about Emerson, because Emerson, we were talking halfway through the game and kind of went, oh, okay, he's doing some things. I am noticing Emerson Hyndman, which is a new experience sometimes. Sometimes he does, Philip is right, he does disappear.
Yeah.
I'm noticeably, tangibly feeling Emerson Hyndman in this building tonight, right? I think where we noticed him was defensively. I think there were a few moments where there was one play in particular where he tracked back and made a great play that probably saved a goal. And I think just seeing those things is enough in our brains to trigger, okay, this is a player who is contributing.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the same conversation that we always have with Hyndman, where you're always going to look at his contract and you're going to judge him against that versus anything else. And we probably should judge him based on whether we think he's helping the team more or less than another player on the roster would be. And I think that right now he is probably your best option right now in one of those central midfield spots. I think the question is, again, he's a player who's not going to instinctively want to make that run, make the run and behind the defensive line. And so I think that's just another player in this whole collection of players who doesn't want to do that. And I think that that's the biggest issue with the guy like Hyndman more than anything else. And that's not to say that I have an issue with his game in general. I just think that you need a collection of players that fit together, and he can be one of those players. And sometimes I feel like, his traits that he brings to the game maybe aren't necessarily what you need in a particular matchup, and you want to use somebody else. So I think he can be a useful player for this team, but there might be times when a different profile of player is preferred over him.
Which, I mean, we still haven't really even hit on the contract part of it, which it's just going to be the thing.
It's always going to be there.
It's just always going to be there. Is what it is at this point. Logan asked, before the broadcaster said so on the Twitter feed, did you know that Brooks Lena's dad is named John? I did, actually. I think we knew that when he came in. I think we pointed that out. I thought that was interesting.
Anyway. I mean, you definitely would have noticed that and pointed it out. But
yeah. Anyway, I don't know why we didn't make that rapid fire. Paysanino, 3 clean sheets, but just 1 goal from what the run of play. Besides getting Joseph healthy, what can be done to get the attack really clicking? You could sell Barco.
Again,
I'm totally kidding. Definitely kidding.
Yeah. Again, I think we've talked about this a lot, but to me, it's just runners. You need runners getting in behind and creating that threat. And the hope is that can be Joseph, that Joseph can get back. I thought he looked better in this game when he came on in the 20 minutes. There was one time where he kind of threw his body into a challenge a little bit, not a challenge on the ground, but just kind of got physical, and you could almost see the hesitation at first, but then you could see he kind of made it out through, and that I think was a positive sign for him. And I think that he's just generally looking fitter every time I see him. I feel like he's looking a little bit slimmer and ready, more match fit. And so I think that as that improves, I think that will just help in general in terms of creating all the chances.
Something I want to point out too, and we kind of haven't mentioned it yet, is that Orlando was sitting back a little bit and hoping to play in transition. That's always where they're going to be at their best. They're going to be at their best running at folks. Atlanta has not had similar success in getting into transition moments. And when they do, again, it'll be something like Zeke will play the wrong pass or something like that, and it's so crucial
Or
to hit those transition moments in MLS.
yeah, or it'll be like Zeke running with the ball for 40 yards upfield, which is good and fine. And like, if that's the only option for him, then that's what he should do. But I think that speaks to a lack of other dynamism that surrounds him.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great point. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I also want to point out too that how do you feel about the counter press so far? I thought we were maybe going to see maybe a little bit more of it, but maybe haven't really had the opportunities, or just maybe don't have the cohesiveness yet to really make it count.
I thought the team was counter pressing very well toward the end of the game, and I thought that that's where a lot of their best chances were coming from, and I would like to see them move even more in that direction. And that's why I do wonder, to go back to this Alan Franco situation, if you have 3 lockdown center backs back there, does that let you feel the freedom to really be aggressive in that counter press and go forward? Because I think, at least for the short term right now, that's where a lot of the great chances can really be created, is simply just through those counter pressing situations.
Yeah, God, it's kind of crazy to think about. I really don't think we've seen too much pressing, frankly. Yeah. Like not to the extent that maybe we thought we might. We knew he wasn't quite going to be like full out Bielsa craziness all the time.
Yeah,
but I did kind of think we maybe see a little bit more. Maybe that is something that'll be integrated as they continue to move through, and maybe that's where some of the chances will start to come. It's something to keep an eye on. Something else to keep an eye on, Joe Patrick, and keep your eye very, very closely, because we're moving quickly. This is rapid fire. Smurfy asks, is it too soon to get my Sosa jersey?
Absolutely not. No way.
Go grab that thing. He's a stud. Go look at his passing chart from last week. It was awesome. Father Martinez with the Super League clubs band, who will win the 2023 Club World Cup final between Atlanta United and Brighton. Brighton, sorry.
I've played this matchup in my in the Football Manager thing I did in the depths of the pandemic with Atlanta United in the Premier League, and I think we beat Brighton, so it's got to be Atlanta United.
Not going to happen. Seagulls are too much. Seagulls are too much. Warnock Beagles Fly Darren Eagles ask, is the Eric Lopez hype the friends we made along the way, Joe Patrick? I didn't make any friends. I
hope not. We need to set up a search party for Eric Lopez. Where is this guy?
Hashtag where's Eric? Please ask. We got to find out. Warnock Beagles Fly Darren Eagles ask, you are waiting by Heinze's office the next game and realize he is outside ripping clouds on his Fruity Pebble vape rod right before he has to submit the starting lineup. What alterations do you make to the 18 to get us back in the goal scoring business? You move from like a Fruity Pebble vape to like a mint vape. That's the secret, right? I don't know.
Maybe, maybe.
Maybe. Allison asked, how do you feel about the current form of Gallagher and Tito in relation to what Barco is doing? I feel bad. I feel real bad.
It hurts. It hurts.
Feel some type of way. Let's not get too ahead on Gallagher. I know I'm like hyping up Gallagher, but like maybe he's actually bad. Maybe I'm just missing something. I don't know. Robot Engineer asked, if you could undo one front office decision today other than selling Almiron, what would it be? And my God, would I take Tito Villalba back in a heartbeat? I really can't think of another player that would make this click better, unless like somehow you threw way more money at maybe Darlington.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough. And obviously there's so many money things that happen in this, and this is rapid fire. So I'll say Julian Gressel, because that's a different name than what you mentioned.
That was a different name. I don't, yeah, you're right. That was rapid fire. Quick one today. Joe, any thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I just, again, I'm looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to a home game with many vaccinated people inside. It's going to be beautiful.
Are you going to go to the Gulch?
Yeah, I will. I'll swing by there. I'll drop in.
I'm a superhuman now, so I think I might walk around and just kind of see what's up. I'll have a mask on, but I may see what's up. Say hey, come say hey, guys. Say hello if you see us. We're always happy to say hey, and then awkwardly make small talk a little bit. It's always fun. Go check out our interview with Jeff Lerone. It's on the Patreon. Go check out our interview with Darren Eales on the Patreon.
It's so
good. Check out our interview with Michael Parkhurst on the Patreon. Go check out our interview with Bobby Boswell on the Patreon. There are so many interviews on this Patreon and so many other things coming your way. And of course, we'll keep doing the main show as well. Feel free to find us on Twitter at 5stripe final, at J_Sam Jones, and at JPatrick200. We're all right there, willing and ready to talk to you for hours and hours and hours about anything Atlanta United, MLS, and life in general. That's all I got. Let's get out of here. Bye, all.